Alright, so this is version 2 of my Cortosis Clash special ability for my early access patrons. So I did release the original version a couple weeks ago, and then I've been working with a few font makers to get some sounds, and in addition I've changed up a little bit. So there's going to be two versions now in the library that you can set for special abilities. So let me just demo it real quick, and then I'll give a little explanation. So it is a special ability. You're going to go into the mode. But then while in Cortosis Clash, for the period that you set, if you clash, it'll actually disable the saber, just like we see in the Acolyte episode. But this version will automatically spark, just like the episode, and it will automatically reignite. But let me demo it. So on this version, you'll set how long that disabled period is, and the saber will spark by itself now, and then that reignition, which is a partial ignition at first, with a little bit of a flame effect. The flame tip gets washed out a little bit on camera because it's obviously a little bright, but when you actually see it in person, you can see the end of that section of that initial ignition is going to be like kind of like a disrupted flame. And then it will fully ignite. Now, there's 4 sounds that go with this version. So the original one only had 2 sounds, but in working with font makers, I was able to get more sounds added to the style. When you generate this special ability, the style code will tell you what the file names need to be and what those sounds should be, but they can be anything you want. But the first sound is going to be just entering the mode. So for mine, I've set up a metallic sound. Your second sound you're going to have is there's actually a clashing of like a metallic sound that plays with your normal clash. And that's just to give you a little bit more depth to the sound. So when the sabers clash in the episode against the Cortosis, you can hear the metallic sound, plus you hear the clashing sound, and then the saber disables. So you can add that second sound as the metallic sound behind your clash as well. The third sound, which is actually the most important, is going to be the sound that plays while the saber is shorted out. So that was a piece that I wanted. So the saber is automatically going to spark for however long you set your disable time for. You want that sound to run through that full length, so it plays it once. So you kind of want a sound of the saber sparking multiple times. And then the final sound is that partial reignition. It's kind of a distorted ignition, and it only goes part way. Then your normal ignition will take over. But so let me demo it again, and I'll let you hear the sounds. I'm going to bring it closer. So the initial sound can be anything you want. So it could be just a quote, it could be a small click sound. It's just a sound to tell you you've actually gone into Cortosis Clash mode, and that's when you first do the special ability. That's the same as the version 1 style. So that's that, and now when I clash, there was a small metallic sound, and it goes by quickly with the clash. And this is the other one. This sound is going to run about 7.5 seconds. This is the sparking sound. That was the partial ignition sound, and then the full ignition. Let me play it without talking over it. Oops. So this version carries those 4 sounds. Now when you go to generate the style in the style library, it's going to keep track of all the transition sounds necessary. So the file names may change depending on the style you build. So that's why there's a section of information at the top of all style codes. That information is very important. It should always stay with the style code. The library is keeping track of all the options you've assembled, and it's going to tell you how to properly set up your font, how to use that style, how to edit it. It's also going to include information should you need any troubleshooting. That style information section, it's a lot of text, but it's ignored by Arduino. What that means is it takes up 0 memory on your actual board. So when you generate a style from my library, that information along with the copyright should stay with that style code anytime you put it in a config, because in the future, if you need to do edits, in the future if you need to remember how to control it, if you want to add that style code to a different preset, you need all of that information for it to run properly. Particularly the OS 7 styles, there's a lot of new features that require setup in the font and require special controls. So the library generates all of that information for you so that that style code will always run properly. And then again, the troubleshooting side of it, there's information within that style information that I use to be able to figure out if the library was doing something it wasn't supposed to, or to help you set up that style should you run into trouble. So you should not be removing that information. In a lot of cases, that information is more important than the style code itself, because the style code won't do anything without the proper setup. But so I'm going to do one more quick demo of it, just because I think it's pretty cool. So the partial ignition on camera is washing out, but it actually ignites part way, and then it has this disrupted flame at the end of it. In person, it's a lot more noticeable. That has its own unique sound as well before the full ignition. So this version 2 and version 1 are both available as special abilities in the Early Access Library. You can mix and match. The biggest difference between version 1 and version 2, version 2 has more sound effects added to it to kind of match up to the episode a little bit better. And version 2 is automatic. So once you've clashed and disabled your saber, the sparking effect and the reignition are automatic. You can set the timing, so you can make that sparking period where it's disabled as long or as short as you want. I do recommend that the sound effect of the saber sparking should be roughly as long as that period. So upon watching the Jekki versus Stranger scene, which is what this is based off of, it's about 7.5 seconds of screen time from the time that her saber gets disabled until it reignites itself. So I have a sparking sound that I've worked with a font maker on to run about 7+ seconds. And then that allows for that sparking to have the sound effect while it's there, and then it will automatically reignite after 7.5 seconds. But you can lengthen that, you can shorten it. Also the period of time that Cortosis Clash is active, once you've done the special ability, you can control that. There's also several modes of Cortosis Clash. So I've been using the rotoscope because that's similar to what was in the episode. But there's a lot of different effects. You can have it be a kind of more distorted Clash mode, a reignition. So you can add all of that into the style and customize it. But this is now on the Early Access Library. If you're not an Early Access patron, you can sign up and get early access to this style code along with all the other Acolyte editions. I've also added recipes for some of the new Acolyte fonts. And what those do is allows you to easily customize the style code to match up to a specific font. Let's run it one more time, and then I hope you enjoy. So, Cortosis Clash version 2 is now in the library.